Joining us now is Democratic Congressman Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey. He serves on the Intelligence Committee. He's vice chair of the Problem Solvers Caucus and is a candidate for governor in New Jersey. Congressman, I thank you very much for your time. You're now joining several other Democrats in calling for the resignation of Defense Secretary Hegseth. Why?
Listen, based on a briefing that I had in the Intelligence Committee this morning, just confirmed what you've been hearing people talk about. There is no reason why the Secretary of Defense was discussing specific operational plans on Signal, on a place where hours ahead of an actual attack, you would be putting people's lives in danger, our servicemen and women who were obviously executing an operation, by the way, against terrorists, which I support. I'm not going to back off should they have done it. This is not the way government is supposed to work. You do not put people's lives at danger, and using it, an open source like this to have that kind of level of detailed communication, it made no sense. And the Secretary of Defense should know better and then to put people's lives in danger and to put servicemen and women in danger.
And so, Congressman, without asking for details of any intelligence briefing, were you in any way, did you feel any better or any worse after your meeting today?
I mean, listen, I'm sure you saw the White House making claims, as did the Secretary of Defense, that this information wasn't that important or it did not affect the actual operation, right? He immediately came out and he lied. Right. So I thought he lied, in terms of what he said publicly, and then obviously what we read from Jeffrey Goldberg and what they disclosed. What I learned today was, these questions that, well, it wasn't that sensitive. It wasn't that important. People's lives weren't in danger. Right. It was a 2-hour window, apparently, ahead of when the actual mission occurred. What I learned today just reinforced my initial concern, which we all have had, that this was not appropriate. It should have been, this sensitive information should have been classified. It should never have been discussed on Signal. That's not, as Mr. Haas was just saying, there are ways that you have these conversations. You don't do them over Signal. We don't, obviously that's the same way I'm not going to talk about my discussion this morning. You have it in a SCIF, in a secure room, below ground, in a classified setting. You don't go on to an app and start texting about what you learn that's classified. That information should have been classified. Like, that information being out there and giving time to the enemy to attack our servicemen and women is unacceptable. We would never put people's lives in danger, which is why we don't ever discuss classified information in public. That's why you don't text about it. You have to handle it in a certain way. And I don't understand why the Secretary of Defense would even think of doing that, which is why, of course, I believe it's time for him to go.
And how effective do you think an Inspector General investigation could be?
Listen, I'm all for any investigation, and I think we should get to the bottom of this. I think the Secretary of Defense, if called, should testify and explain more why, if he doesn't believe any of this information should be classified, which I think is a joke. But let's, if he wants to try to explain himself out of this. But I'll tell you this, like we've seen it in black and white, what was said. We know the timeline. That's enough to me to know that servicemen and women were put in danger. It gave our enemies time to respond. That's totally unacceptable to me. But I think we should have every report just reiterate and confirm what we already know.
And Congressman, on another topic, the Social Security Administration is backtracking on new ID requirements for beneficiaries, but their website has crashed 4 times this month. 12% of their staff was recently laid off. What can you do as a member of Congress about this?
So I immediately introduced legislation to stop the shutdown of all these offices, 40-plus offices they're shutting down around the country, laying off people. But now seniors are calling my office, and I was just in a grocery store the other day, and a bunch of people come up to me and say that they tried to make a phone call. One of their benefits, something got messed up. And by the way, these are benefits people pay into, they earn. Our seniors, a lot of people on fixed incomes rely on these benefits. And what happened? They couldn't get through. That everyone's calling. They're worried the offices will be closed. And we're going to help, do everything we can, and my office is doing it, just like I know a lot of other offices are doing it. But why would you go after seniors and take away something that generally works well? And when there's a mistake, when there's a problem with an earned benefit, trying to sign up for Social Security, and the idea of this administration is literally going after seniors and gutting the Social Security Administration makes no sense to me, and we're going to do everything we can to fight back. And you see them already trying to backpedal on it.
And Congressman, so where should reform be carried out, and how should that reform be carried out?
So I think in every place you do it the right way, not with chaotically slashing and burning like they're doing and hurting seniors or hurting veterans or hurting kids who are hungry with school breakfast and school lunch. That is not a strategy. That's just stupidity. So, right, you don't want chaos. You want common sense. And I think there's a common sense way to do all of this, right? You look at anything methodically and say, is there something that doesn't make sense there? Are there reforms that should be made? Of course. And then you actually have a proper conversation about it, right? You study it, and then you do something about it. You don't you don't just slash and burn, cause chaos, and then have the conversation after you've caused the problem. That doesn't make any sense. Again, that is just, in my opinion, stupidity, not common sense. And I think we need common sense, not chaos. And that's the way we're going to actually solve problems.
Congressman Josh Gottheimer, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.